Quiet Place Day 1 takes us out of the small town and into the bustling island of Manhattan. Just how quickly did millions of people learn to be quiet when the aliens first landed on Earth? Who cares? The main hero of this movie is a cat, and that is all that matters. Welcome everyone to Screams After... Shh. That'd be silly, it's a podcast, I can't do that. But yeah, it's a horror movie podcast. I'm Pierre, and joining me as always is Tim.
I could really go for some pizza right now.
I've got things to say about how this movie has elements that is tailor-made seemingly for both me and you, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Today, everyone, we are talking about A Quiet Place Day 1, which won our Patreon vote for the month. We had 3 movies that we're going to do all of, like by the time we get to about best of the year time in March. But I thought, I'll give them the option of which one will sneak in November, because a few of them will have to wait until January, February time. And the winner was Quiet Place Day 1, which of course is the prequel, the third in the Quiet Place franchise, because everything's a franchise now. And this is the next one. It's actually, I think it's the highest grossing horror movie of the year, I want to say.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get into it. We'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before spoilers. And of course, if you're enjoying the show, do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch. And you can get bonus exclusive episodes and other little goodies over in Patreon if you want to support us. But I'll tell you more about that stuff at the end of the episode. So yeah. So we did A Quiet Place way back when it came out in like 2017? No, 2019, maybe. Something in there. Quiet Place Part 2.
Sucked.
Well, I'll give opinions on it in a second, but we didn't review that together. I reviewed that with Shasha at the time.
Yeah.
Hey Tim, if we hadn't have done it, and I hadn't done it at all, I would have made you do it before we did this one. Did you not think it was weird I didn't do that?
I just assumed we did it.
Your memory's terrible. The amount of movies that I'll say to Tim, we should do this, and you go, haven't we done that already?
Would you be surprised that I don't think about the show very often after we record?
No. So yes, but hey, we're here for the third one, and here's the weird thing about this franchise, Tim, is it's got a solid premise, right? And we were fairly positive, I think, on the first one.
Yeah, I haven't revisited it since we watched it, but I remember liking it, quite a bit at the time.
I remember having a little bit of a problem with the ending, but otherwise I remember having a decent time and thought, okay, it's a movie with mechanics because you explain the sound rules. If you make any noise, big monsters will come and get you. You have to be quiet. Here's all of the problems that can arise if that's what you're dealing with. Okay, simple enough. I like movies that have simple premises, but can do it and play a lot with the... Shut up. They can play a lot with the rules that they've set up. But it's kind of building on something you just said there. I have had no desire to revisit it since it came out. Like I have not had that feeling. Quiet Place Part 2, I do think had some good like set piece moments, some good ideas of like how to do new things with the monsters. But I felt very like little for it. Like I just didn't feel anything. I felt just apathetic towards the whole thing. And the funny thing about this movie is that as this was coming out and they were showing trailers, and especially once the reviews came out, because it was getting some pretty decent reviews and it was getting high praise, despite all that, I still had this feeling of, yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine, but for some reason I just can't bring myself to care that much. There's something about this franchise that I just do not feel for it. It's really weird because on a technical level, it's doing mostly things that are pretty solid. It's doing things that make sense. And I think I've got some further insight as to why I feel this way once we start talking about the quality of this one. But on you go. What's your general feelings in the franchise so far?
I am on the same page as you are. And I mean, again, I have more thoughts on it, but I don't want to kind of reveal those until, we kind of start talking about the movie proper. But I will share an interesting story, if you can believe it, that I have one. This a past weekend, which I mean it'll be way later when people are listening to this, but actually went to Universal Horror Nights this past weekend, which if you don't know what that is, at the Universal theme park, during Halloween time, they have all these haunted houses and scare actors and stuff you can go and do at the park. So you're probably familiar with those things, like you go through these different haunted houses or mazes, people jump out at you and stuff. This year they had one for The Quiet Place, and it was making me laugh so much going through it, because like the aliens in the movie, they're they're not ones that like people can really dress up as, like,
yes,
they're big and like lanky and spidery and stuff, so they would have like alien stuff that would jump out at you, but obviously it was like kind of like these big puppety things that they would have to make, so they would only have them at like a few places during the maze. So but they needed like things to scare you in between. So basically what they did is, most of the maze when you're walking through, people would jump out at you, but it would just be people jumping out and shushing you, or like jumping out and then like doing sign language at you. And it just made me laugh, because I'm like why are you so like, why are you trying to scare me? Like, you're just a person. Like, I don't know. I just thought that was really funny. And kind of similar to that is they also had one for the new Ghostbusters movie, which they would have like some ghosts jump out at you, but like sometimes they would also just have like someone dressed up as Podcast jump out at you, and I'm like why?
I feel this is an anecdote you could have put at the end of the show, Tim. But for some reason, you've tacked this entire like Halloween Horror Nights like anecdote onto the question of how do you feel about the Quiet Place movies, which is a what are you doing? Come on.
I just thought it was interesting.
Answer the question before I slap you about the place.
I mean, again, I pretty much answered how I feel about it, though. I mean, yeah.
After all that, there wasn't even like a working a way back round to like actually elaborated on what I asked. All right, okay.
I'm curious about the video game, but I don't know.
I don't care. So the premise of this one obviously is the start. It's set during the initial like invasion of the aliens, and the story follows a character called Samira, played by Lupita Nyong'o, and she is basically she's living in a hospice because she's got cancer and she's dying. Right? She's kind of already like past due her time of like expectancy. But she's our main character that we follow in Manhattan as all this like kicks off for the first time. And I'll just leave it there. We don't have to talk about anything else plot wise until spoilers, I don't think. I mean, there is like another fairly main character, doesn't pop up until a little bit later, played by Joseph Quinn, but we'll kind of save what he's all about until we get to him in the story. So that's
Harley's brother.
You're like a child. You heard the name Quinn and you thought, oh, what could I possibly relate that to? Oh, Harley Quinn, that's a name, that's a character.
It was funny. People loved it.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Just put just in the comments for the Quiet Place Day 1 episode, just if you like that joke, just put Harley Quinn in the comments.
Why don't you just say this episode? You'd have to like specify it was like the movie. Like they know it's this movie. They're on it. They're watching it right now.
All right. Well, I mean, if you really like the joke, then go back to the Blood Rage episode and comment Harley Quinn on that.
Blood Rage episode? That was like in the first 50 Why did you pull that one out your ass?
It's timely.
How's it timely?
So that's a Thanksgiving movie, right?
Yeah, I guess technically it is, yes. Is that the only reason why you remember it exists, is because you've been looking up Thanksgiving movies recently? For the audio listeners, he was doing some serious thinking faces right there. Like he was trying to evade the question with a cheeky little side eye.
Listen, don't act like Blood Rage isn't, first and foremost on my mind at most times.
I seem to recall liking it more than you did, but I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah, I don't think I liked it that much, but hey, you know what? It might be time to forgive and forget and revisit it this holiday season with loved ones.
Yeah, it's just not any evil twins.
Oh no, definitely not.
And that reference will make sense if you've seen Blood Rage. So for all three of you who have, you're welcome. All right, Tim.
Yes, sir.
How did you feel about A Quiet Place Day One?
So similar to what you're saying, like going into it, it was weird because I'd heard good things, but also like, yeah, I wasn't like super looking forward to it. It's like, yeah, I guess I will watch this at some point, but it's not like, oh man, like I really want to dig into it. And it definitely helped. I didn't know this at first, but at some point when I realized that the person that was doing it was the same director as Pig, which was just a phenomenal movie. I really like that movie. So yeah, that definitely got me a bit more excited, but yeah, I still was just kind of going in like with all right, like let's see what this is. And I gotta say, I was pretty happy with it. I thought it was well done. It is interesting because I do feel like it's the opposite of the first movie in some ways, whereas you're talking about the first movie, it's has a very interesting premise and it's setting up these rules and mechanics, and that's kind of what's drawing you in with it. And maybe it's just because it's a gimmick that maybe can't really be overdone that much, or maybe it's just because I don't know, I kind of find the aliens at this point to be pretty boring.
Well, they were always a generic design. Like I never found the aliens interesting as an actual monster.
Yeah. And is that just like a thing now where like I feel like kind of like this bland beige kind of look, and then with like a head that opens, I just feel like that's like a thing I see a lot of now.
Oh, I've had this debate. I mean, maybe not in this show, but I definitely talked about this in the Ace a bunch of how the monsters in this, the monster in Cloverfield, the monsters, there's like a bunch. I think Super 8 maybe. Like, there's a bunch of monsters from different movies that all effectively have the same type of design.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that I like really cannot. I'm a little more familiar with these ones because we just watched the movie, but those are the ones you just named. I could not for the life of me even describe really what they look like, versus, obviously like a xenomorph or something.
It's easy, Tim. No, the monsters in this only bigger.
Okay. But yeah, so the funny thing about this is like, again, the first one, very interested in the mechanics and how everything works. And this one, like, I really didn't care that much about it. It's just a very captivating character piece. Like, that like really the selling point of the movie is, this woman's journey and her relationship with this other person. And, I thought the performances were great. I thought it was directed pretty well. So, I don't think I can go like as far and say that like I loved it, because I'm just not like super into this subject matter at this point, but I do think it was pretty well done. And I was engrossed in all like this character stuff. It's just a shame that like the more horror-y or sci-fi whatever kind of monstery aspects of it aren't really doing it as much for me. But again though, I can't complain because it's a pretty well done character drama.
I can complain. No, like I agree. Like I think all the character stuff it's doing is solid. I think those scenes are well directed. But I think I realized my big problem with this franchise as I was watching this movie is that tonally, I just don't think any of these movies have been quite what I want from the premise. Like, because even though the first one was definitely the interesting part of it was the mechanics and like, okay, what can we get away with? How do we have to be quiet? What are the pitfalls of, like, so in the first movie, the big thing was, oh, a baby's on the way. We can't really control if a baby's quiet or not. That's kind of an issue. And that was kind of the big thing that it was building to. In this movie, like there's little things here or there. There's some moments where you sort of maybe question, was that like loud enough or not? One of the things that was bugging me a lot in this actually, as I was watching it, is that in the first movie they made such a big deal about having to walk barefoot because like shoes are too loud, and there's like scenes in this movie where people are like walking, running, whatever, in shoes, and I'm like, isn't this just like enough noise already? I mean, like the sound mix is like telling me there's no sound, but like running in shoes is loud. Like you hear it, you know, it makes noise. But I mean, that's just a bit of suspension of disbelief stuff. That's not really the any problem. It's like, I think the main character is compelling enough. I think the relationship they have with the other characters is pretty good, but it's just not what I want from this movie. I like this movie, and to an extent, the franchise as a whole, because I think 2 fell into this, and even 1 to an extent. But 2 and Day 1 are both so melodramatic and sappy, and there's a place for that. There absolutely is. You can do a good drama that's about, you know, this woman who's dying, who's basically gave up in life, but maybe finds the will to fight again and survive again. Like, you know, there's a clear story in here that it's trying to tell that's admirable, and I do like when there is a bit more of a real story to what a horror movie's doing. But I want a fun roller coaster from this goddamn premise. I don't want like sentimental scenes of sad piano music playing as someone looks at a photograph. I mean, this movie starts in a hospice with a bunch of dying people, and it's just like, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so depressed. Like, why are we starting this in such a downer? Like, it's like the director really wants to make a serious drama, and the horror stuff's done well enough, but it still kind of feels like this is not where the heart is in it. Like, the heart's not in that stuff. The heart's in the character stuff, and the horror stuff at this point. And maybe, like you said, I don't like the monsters in Quiet Place. I never have. I think they are big and generic.
And also, like, I kind of forget, you know, how it was portrayed in the other movies because it's been a while, but I'm assuming it was the same thing. But it's also just so boring when they attack because they're just so fast, and it's just like they swoop in and grab someone and they're gone. And it's like, you know, there's no like gore. There's, you know, very seldom like a lot of interesting stuff going on. It's just, I mean, I feel like that's just one of the reasons why it's so boring, and I don't really care when they're attacking because it's just like, all right, swoop, and the person's gone, and the monster's gone. I can't see it anymore. Okay.
I think that would be fine if it really doubled down on like set pieces where they have to, you know, like give me a scene where they have to cross something that's going to be naturally loud, so they have to be extra careful, and give me some tension that way. You know, whatever that might be, or like just think of ways to play with it and put them in danger. But I agree, if the monster attacks were actually interesting or entertaining at this point, it might be something that I could get into. I think it lends to this feeling of feeling really like Hollywood and like sanitized, where it doesn't it doesn't feel like it's trying to pack a punch emotionally with the characters, and that was always true with the family and stuff in the previous movies. But this is getting no interest in packing a punch of like, oh, that was brutal, what just happened to that guy, you know? Like, maybe when they grab someone, they split them in half or something. And I'm not just saying gore would fix my problems here. It wouldn't be enough on its own, but it does feel like, even just watching this, it's such a big budget movie compared to the stuff we normally do for this show. And like, you know, I'm seeing citywide shots of Manhattan. It's like an alien invasion movie. It feels like, you know, post-apocalyptic, or the start of a post-apocalypse anyway. And all this is happening, and I'm like, you know what? Horror movies, by and large, are better when they're more intimate, I think.
Sure.
I rewatched Dawn of the Dead over October season.
The Zack Snyder version, I assume?
No, of course not, the original. All right, and even though technically the entire world is affected by the zombie thing going on, it's a very intimate movie. It just follows these 4 characters, and they're in the mall, and it's like, how do we use that location? How do we do things with it? What does it represent? What does it mean? That is a movie that absolutely has subtext, but it doesn't have this ultra melodramatic side to it. Like, and it's when something happens to one of the characters, it almost hits harder because of that. Whereas, you know, there's times in this where there's like, you know, there's like a warm glow coming from the window and hitting a photograph, and there's sad piano music playing, and I'm like, you're trying really hard. And the annoying part is that I think everything it's doing with that side of the story is actually solid and good, right? Well done, well directed. And I can totally see liking this story of these 2 people who have found each other in this weird situation, if it wasn't also trying to be a horror movie and a monster movie. And because of that, I felt like this weird disconnect from it the entire time. I'm like, okay, this is objectively a good scene, but I don't feel much for it because I'm kind of like, where's my horror movie? Where's my thrills? Where's my suspense and tension and all that stuff?
Yeah. Well, that's why, it is kind of weird, because I do think it's well done, and I would say I enjoyed it. But if I'm like judging it as a horror movie, yeah, it would be hard to, really rave about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like we like things that are not horror movies. I mean, just a couple of months ago we did I Saw the TV Glow, which
Right.
we basically discovered isn't really a horror movie, but it was excellent. It was an excellent, like, thoughtful character drama. This is trying to merge character drama with big apocalyptic horror movie, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I actually, I hadn't really thought about it, but I totally agree with that point. Is that every time the monsters come in, they just swoop in really quickly and grab whoever it is and take them away. There's never really any variation to it or anything that makes any particular kill stand out. It's more about how they make a noise before they get grabbed. And now that we're 3 movies in, that's kind of lost a little bit of its luster. And I think it makes you hypercritical as well. Like I think in the first movie you're willing to forgive any little suspension of disbelief moments. There's moments in this that were irking me a little bit more. An example, and not just the whole like wearing the shoes thing, which the first movie told me was too loud, but at one point a generator turns on. I won't spoil the context or anything, but a generator turns on by itself, and it's a big sort of, it's a big rumble, and a character runs over to it as it's on for like a good 20 seconds trying to find the off switch, and all I could think was, why are you going near it? Just vacate the location of the generator, and like the monster will destroy it because it's making noise, and then they'll leave.
That was the thing I kept wondering. Like, okay, anytime you do accidentally make a noise, like, can you just throw a rock or something and hit a window like far away from you, that it's like, okay, like that's gonna be the noise now,
That's fair. Yeah, it would. I also had this thought. I mean, maybe there's a way for them to tell this, but I was thinking to myself as I was watching this movie is that these monsters make a lot of noises. They're rampaging around, and I'm like, how does a monster not know that it's another monster that's made a noise? Like 3 streets down that way.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I would assume that there's some, the way they've evolved or something, they can, distinguish each other. But yeah, I agree that is something to think about.
It must be like a hive mind thing, because like if it's just based on sound,
Sure.
like how can they tell that, like, I don't know, like a clanking of metal because something's fallen onto a car. How can they tell a human did that or something did that versus one of their own, like knocking something down and it hitting the car?
Sure. No, it's a very good point.
Which I never really thought about until now, but maybe that's because of the setting, because we're in a city and the show is literally maybe 100 monsters like swarming around the city. Whereas at least, in the last movies, it was like, oh, there's 3 in like a really rural area kind of thing. So there's not that many to think about.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah. But that's the thing. I don't think that's a huge problem. I was just thinking about it more because I wasn't that like
invested in it.
Yeah. I was watching it kind of at this arm's length, and despite whatever it did, it couldn't quite get me in. And like, I appreciate what it was trying to do, but like, all the sappy stuff, all the like, oh, like this character's got cancer, she's dying, this nurse is trying to like bring her out of her shell and make her enjoy whatever time she's got left. Like, I'm just like, oh, this is such a, like, I appreciate it in the sense that it's trying to do something different. I really do. I just think that there's a different tone that you could have taken with it and still made it work. I think it's just a little bit too melodramatic in the way it's presented to work in a horror movie for me. This felt more like a big budget Hollywood movie, and to be fair, all the Quiet Place movies have done to an extent. So it feels a bit too sanitized as a horror movie for my taste, I think. At least that's where I come down on it. I don't know.
No, I mean that's a very fair point. Like, yeah, I wouldn't argue it. Again, like, I enjoy it, but it's like none of it is for like any of the horror aspects, like at all. It's a shame.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to be billed as two Debbie Downers on this review. But I just, like, again, I don't think objectively it's doing anything wrong. I think it's well directed, it's well made. I just don't think that the two parts of it fit together that well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it is a very interesting gimmick, but yeah, I don't think it can really survive like multiple movies. Like,
well, financially it is surviving, it's thriving even, so you're going to get more of these, Tim, and I hope you like it.
I guess that's fair. But I mean, at least to me, that it's just not. It seems to be like less and less interesting. I mean, I guess if you want to keep getting like really talented filmmakers to, just make like really good character set pieces or something, I guess that's one way to do it. But there's the horrorness of it is definitely losing steam, if it has had any left at all.
Yeah, it's such a weird franchise to me. I just feel so like numb to it. It's very odd, but I can't shake that feeling. It's just I'm not really sure what they could do outside of making a movie that feels so completely different from what they've done up to this point for me to like go, oh, this is, because like I say, I've not felt any desire to go back and rewatch the first one. I've definitely not felt any desire to go back and watch the second one, and I highly doubt I'm going to want to go back and watch this. I feel like I'll just go into hibernation for A Quiet Place now until a fourth one comes out, and we'll do it because we've done them all, and they're big enough, high profile horror movies that we should. But
yeah, I mean, I wonder if maybe they won't want to get too far away from this, because I guess it's been working in all the movies. But yeah, if you do want to get away from kind of the character drama focus of it all, and like if you just made like a really kind of action packed movie, like do an Aliens approach where it's just like, all right, let's have like
there's people hunting them more than
like like a ragtag group of people together that these are like the opposition, they're hunting them down and stuff, like something like that could be more fun, and then you're focusing more on like the action and the danger of them, and instead of like you said, just like jangly piano music and stuff. But
so we keep following people who are just barely surviving, which is, I get why you do that in a horror movie, it makes sense because they're more vulnerable, but I do wonder though if doing the Colonial Marines thing where you've got like a group hunting them and they're using tactics where they're making sounds, luring them into a trap and then killing the shit out of them, I wonder if it almost like ruins the horror a bit too much, because I feel like while I buy the devastation that happens when they first arrive, I do think that if people know, like if a team of military unit know how to lure them and kill them, at that point it feels like it shouldn't be that difficult. Like they should be able to take care of it, because all you have to do is literally set off noises to lure them into like a location, and then I mean I know that obviously yes, there's the whole like you have to do the loud high pitched noise to make them open their face so you can shoot the weak spot video game style. Maybe that's the other thing, is they just feel like a generic video game boss. I feel like I've fought one of these things in multiple games at this point, I'm pretty sure.
There's very little personality to them.
Yes, no personality. They're just not an interesting villain. Like mechanically, like I think this exact premise, like forgetting the monsters and like why they're here and where they came from and all that, just the premise of a monster that hunts by hearing, like, I mean, we kind of had it actually. It was called Don't Breed, but like a smaller movie, I could see myself really liking was playing with that premise. Although maybe it's been a little bit silly now but if we ever get that movie now, I'm going to just think about the fact that it's doing A Quiet Place.
Yeah,
because maybe it's ruined the premise for me a little bit, but yeah. I hate to be such a downer on it. I just like, I don't think it's a bad movie. I just don't think it's doing what I want from the premise, and I think I felt that increasingly with each movie. I think I sounded fairly positive on the first one, but the thought of like watching it again does make me feel kind of like, there's more interesting movies I could be rewatching than that one. I don't know. I've soured on it a little bit, I think, since it came out. So
yeah, no, I mean, in the same boat, really. Like, yeah, I really don't have any desire to revisit it at this point.
Yeah, I wonder if we're in the minority of like the general public, yes, but like are our horror fans feeling this way, or are we just being jaded assholes? I mean, I definitely know people that liked it, but I would probably argue like, my friend, like I know friends and stuff that said they enjoyed it, but I doubt even they would revisit this at any point, or that is something that would really be on someone's mind that far in the future. Yeah, that's fair. So Sadly, though, we're going to have to do at least a fourth one, I assume. And I think
Did they?
Yeah, there you go.
Did they already greenlit one, or?
I'm fairly certain they greenlit multiple projects. Let's double check before we get into the spoilers here.
Okay.
I'll go to the Wikipedia page for. I knew that was the first one. That's right. Okay.
I know they announced a new Orphan movie today.
Today. This is not an Even More Streams episode. We're not here to talk about random announcements. But yes.
Yeah, I'm just excited.
Esther lives, yes. That's the thing. Okay, upcoming. Okay, yeah, Quiet Place Part 3. Apparently is a thing. It was officially announced and scheduled with a release date in 2025. However, in February 2024, the film no longer had a release date. Alright, so yeah, I remember this actually. They took it off the schedule, so it probably will still happen, but they delayed it because of probably all the strikes that were happening in 2023.
So the second one, it was following the family from the first one, right?
Yeah, I'm sure the third one would be as well.
Okay. I don't need any more of that family.
Now do I. I agree. Yeah. I'm good.
Let's see. Let's get some celebrities in there. Like, let's see, like, what famous people would be doing during the quiet times. You know, because they love to hear themselves talk. You know. like what would a famous influencer, like, how would he cope with not being able to influence people during the quiet times? I assume that's what they call it, the quiet times. I don't know.
Google AI is upset me.
Oh, Pete, why are you using AI?
Well, I'm not, but if you Google something now, you get an AI result before anything else now, so you can't help but see it. They're telling me, 'cause this is the thing though, I've seen it be blatantly wrong about multiple things, but it's saying here that the part 3 is the third and final installment, which that sounds too good to be true, because I would like it to be the final one, but given that this one made a lot of money, I suspect that that you know, assuming part 3 does well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they'll say it's the final one, and then, like, in 5 years they'll reboot it, and now it'll be like the loud place, and everyone has to scream or something. And
yeah. Now what they'll do is this will just be the end of the story of the family, even though it felt pretty finished with part 2, and then they'll just keep doing like subtitles after. It'll be Quiet Place year 100 or something. I don't know.
And then they'll do 10-episode Apple Plus TV series that explores the origins of the alien planet or something.
I'm just tired. I'm tired with everything having to be milked to death. You know that? And I realize I'm being hypocritical here because I'm happy that there's going to be a fourth Terrifier, and I'm annoyed that there's a fourth Quiet Place. But, you know, like, some movies, like, oh, it's magical they were successful enough to get another one, whereas with this, it just feels like we're milking a cash cow. I don't know.
I mean, there's a very big difference between... I thought we talked about this in another episode, though, where it's like, I enjoy franchises, but yeah, I feel like we don't get as many things where it's like we're following a specific, horror character or something. Like, instead we get a lot of things, like this, where it's like, oh yeah, we're doing a sequel, but it's like, more based on like a gimmick or a premise or, I don't know, like stuff like that, when it's just like, yeah, we're not getting the kind of franchises anymore where it's just like, oh, you have like the slasher character or something, and you want to see them in different situations or have different kills or whatever. And yeah, that to me is just not as interesting, because it's like, all right, you can't really, especially something like this, which is so, hinged on a very specific, premise, that, yeah, there's really not much you can do other than kind of, just exploring like different characters within that universe. And yeah, it's just not really what you want.
Well, that was the end of the sentence.
Yes.
Your inflection there didn't sound like the end of a sentence, which is why I thought you were just taking a breath or something. All right, fair enough. I mean, I think there's things you could do. There's definitely different locations that could be more interesting. Like, given that the weakness of the aliens is water, right, and that they can't cross like any sort of body of water, it's like, well, okay, clearly they landed in all the major continents, all the major land masses, but like, did they land in Australia? Is Australia safe? Are they just one big, like, happy oasis away from all this shit? Or is it only just little tiny islands that have been left untouched kind of thing? I don't know.
So you want A Quiet Place 3, The Marsupials?
No, I want A Quiet Place, The Fury Road. That's what I want.
Okay.
I want a Mortem Joe killing himself some Quiet Place aliens. That's what I want.
I wouldn't be against that.
Anyway, all right. I just say spoilers. Spoilers for Quiet Place Day One. You have been warned if you've not seen the movie and are concerned about spoilers. We're about to just talk about everything. All right. I want to start off with two things here, right?
Okay.
Right.
I'll allow it.
Not only like this movie, of course, right, is something that we were both kind of down on, but in some ways it felt like it was trying to, on top of just being generally well done.
I know what you're gonna say.
Right? There's two things here that it felt like it was trying to like almost bribe us specifically into giving it a positive review.
Right.
Because on my side of things, there's a main character in this who's a effing cat. There's a cat, and that cat is like the smartest, bravest cat who like saves lives and does all sorts of shit, and like survives the whole movie, right? And to be fair, like after it survived the first time it was in danger, I was like, okay, you've done it once. This cat cannot die now, or I'm going to be pissed at you. So luckily they didn't kill the cat. But yeah, prominent cat main character, right? And then as the movie develops, what's the main character's goal throughout this entire movie in this post-apocalypse? Her goal is to get pizza. Which felt like, oh, Tim will really, I mean, I relate to her for the cat thing. You relate to her for the pizza one.
I mean, sneaking around trying to grab a slice of pizza without waking my family. I mean, this is, I was just in this situation the other night before I watched this, so very relatable.
Yeah, of course you are. So those things were just making me laugh as it became clear that like the cat was going to be a mainstay, and then as the goal became to get pizza, like, because it's kind of mentioned early, but it's not like, oh, obviously that's going out the window once the apocalypse happens, and then it turns out no, she's still going to go and get that pizza. And that became like why she's going a certain direction and why she's going the whole thing's just, it would give me a chuckle on a personal level. It's not funny to anyone else, but it's funny to us.
I like it, and then I do appreciate that on just a level of, we've seen so many post-apocalyptic stories which are always about like, oh, we got to get to like this safe haven or this transport or whatever, and effectively like that's a big part of the movie is getting to this transport. But I like the main characters being like, no, I don't really care about that. I'm instead just gonna do this very specific thing for me, which is I just want the food that I like. So I don't know, I thought that was like a nice little, I guess, twist on what you usually see in these things.
Yeah, obviously there's a bit more to it. It's pizza from a specific place in Harlem that her dad used to take her to after he would play at the jazz club that she'd also go to. So there's a lot of memories tied up. We find out her dad also died of cancer, so she's like feeling lots of feelings about that, and she wants pizza from this specific place. So that's kind of like, there's a lot of emotional things tied to this particular pizza. But yes, so that's the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, what else? Like, so I guess we talk about like the. Actually, before we get to the friendship with Joseph Quinn's character Eric, we should probably just sort of talk about the first like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, which is, she's in the hospice. She doesn't want to go to the city to see a show, but she changes her mind when she convinces the nurse character, who's kind of like at that point probably the main like secondary character, Ruben. Who did you recognize Ruben from anything, Tim?
I'm sorry, I did not.
I think you'll find he was in Old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting. That's very funny because I watched another movie today and I was talking to someone about it and they were like, "Oh, that character is from Old too." I was like, "Oh, okay." That's the second time that happened to me today.
Yeah, your memory is really going down the shitter, Tim. Apparently.
I choose what's important to me.
Yes. It somehow probably has all of the boy and Leprechaun memorized.
Well, that's important.
Is it? So yeah, it establishes a bunch of things. It establishes she takes these like patches that help with her pain that's going to come up later on in the story and whatnot. Establishes the cat, of course, which she takes with her to the show. Which is a service cat a real thing? Because I didn't think it was a real thing.
I mean, I feel like I've seen people do the, hey, this is a service animal with like multiple different kinds of animals. I mean, I don't know the legality of it. I do feel like it's probably like just up to whoever the proprietor of where you're trying to visit. I do think that that was like, I got a little chuckle like when she's in the store though, and the guy has like a cat sitting on the counter. He's like, hey, you can't bring that in here. She's like, really? I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
There's a melody. I mean, this movie doesn't crack a lot of jokes, but that was obviously a joke.
Yeah.
To be fair,
I mean, I wasn't on the floor like crying tears of joy, but
to be fair though, he might have a point. I know she looks at the other cat that's on the counter already and like, wait, you've got a bodega cat and you're saying I can't bring a cat in. However, some cats don't like each other, and there might actually be a valid reason for saying, hey, don't bring in another cat because my cat will try and fight it. Like,
that's fair.
Yeah, there's a possible reason for him to say that. He may not just be being a dick. He probably is, but he may not be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, honestly, like all this character setup stuff was fine. It establishes this family that are sitting in the theater in front of her. Who the dad comes up a little bit. He's played by Jimon Honzo, who most people probably know from Gladiator or Guardians of the Galaxy. But he's there with his family, and he pops up for a few scenes once everything goes down. But that stuff's set up as well. But really, you're just kind of waiting for when's the monsters hitting, and it does, and yeah.
Well, what do you think of the puppet show, though?
I'm not much of a marionette guy, Tim. I'm going to be honest.
What? The hell?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you an avid fan?
Hey, if it's on strings, it's my things.
Wait. I'm trying to think of something else that's on a string that have just said that you're into that would be embarrassing or stupid or problematic, but I can't think of anything that's on a string.
I dare you to try. Yo-yo, awesome. Those one of those things with like the bouncy ball in the paddle. Those things are cool.
Oh, that's elastic though. Are we counting that as a string?
Yeah, it's in the string family.
It's a string family.
String cheese, various stringed instruments. Those really cool boards that conspiracy theorists have where they got like
yeah, all the red string. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll get Tim a harp for his Christmas. Apparently he'll be into it.
Oh, I can rock out on the harp.
Dear. Yeah, actually, this is the other problem with this, is because I wasn't that interested in the monster stuff, I'm finding it really hard to, like when the monsters had hit, right, and there's a lot of stuff with, like, obviously her waking up confused because she was waiting in the bus for the others because they were about to evacuate, and there's a lot of debris, there's people screaming and getting grabbed almost instantly, and she hides under like a car at one point and gets her leg trapped but is able to like fight her way out. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that happens. I'm just having a hard time really finding a reason to really bring much of it up, if I'm honest. I mean,
like, don't worry, we'll go through the whole movie, but like we could sum the plot up like pretty quickly. Like, it is mostly just kind of going from one place to one place.
I mean, I've basically done this section because I really can't think of anything else interesting to say about much of this.
It's like we said before, the aliens, like, they're not really doing that much of interesting stuff. So like when they do land, it is just kind of like someone makes a noise, they swoop in, and repeat. I did think that scene when she was trapped in the car was kind of interesting because like the tire's deflating, so it's starting to like
sink.
Slowly sink. So like that was a nice little piece of business, I thought. But so we're pretty quick. She just kind of loosens her leg and is free.
I just like that phrase. That was a nice little piece of business. Yeah, she ends up like getting knocked out or passing out when she's out there though, and she wakes up in the theater again, and like it's the husband of the family who's like got his hand over her mouth and been like shh. Like, so basically at this point people have figured out make no noise. There's like helicopters flying overhead announcing it, like, everyone make no noise, like, be quiet, be quiet. They're attracted to noise, blah blah blah. And we see there's a lot of survivors all hiding out in the theater. They're all sitting around quietly. The nurse character's there. He's got her cat, so the cat's okay. It does all this stuff. That's all fine. He doesn't make it very long though. He was the character that I was referring to earlier when I talked about the generator going.
Oh yeah.
And he stands next to it for like several seconds trying to find the off switch, when the smartest thing to do would be just not be next to it.
Very true, yeah.
But who am I to judge? To be fair, and they've established at this point that no noise attracts them, right? They've shown this multiple times. Maybe one of the most interesting parts here is when they're on the roof and they see the military blowing up the bridges. So they can obviously, because they know they can't swim, so they're blowing up the bridges to make sure that things can't get across to different land masses. All fine. And there's a guy who freaks out and starts like muttering, and he's about to start shouting that they're all going to die because he's freaking out. And it's Hanzo's character who jumps up and like covers his mouth and tries to get him to calm down. And he's like, like, keep it cool, right? But the guy's determined to do it, and he fights him off. And because he keeps trying to speak, eventually he has to punch him, and his head hits off the wall behind him. So he's just killed this guy, and his son, who's like sort of lingering down at the bottom of the stairs, watched this happen. And it's kind of this like, oh no, like this is like the real post-apocalypse because he's just done something like savage, effectively, for good reason. But like the weight of just killing this guy, like, it was an interesting idea of a moment in terms of like doing stuff with it.
Yeah, I thought it was effective. Like, it's obviously creating tension with this idiot that won't shut up, and then he doesn't. The guy clearly doesn't want to, do what he does, but he's really like left with no choice. And then you kind of see like his reaction afterwards. It's kind of like what did I do? But also like I had to do it.
Yeah, they'd have all died if he kept saying stuff. And also, it's not like he intentionally tried to kill him. He just punched him, and it just was a.
I wasn't sure if like I didn't know if there was like a pipe or something behind him that maybe it impaled his head or something, or it's just hard enough to. I
think it was just a brick wall. Yeah, I don't think there was any. Like, if that was the implication, they did a poor job of showing it. So I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah, because I was like a little surprised. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that kills him. I mean, fine.
Yeah. So obviously she was kind of like bonding again with the nurse character. Was thankful for being alive. The other big thing with her character, was not really mentioned, is she used to be a poet, like a famous poet with published poems. And she has stopped doing that, like ever since, I guess, getting cancer. She's just kind of lost the will to actually want to do that. In fact, the movie opens with her kind of like doing like a really stupid poem that she intentionally did to just like, because there's like she was forced into doing it for group therapy, and she's like, "This place is shit. This guy smells like shit. I hate this place. Everything's shit." And that was it. So
I liked it. I mean, I don't think it was that bad.
Yeah, but no one's going to you for poetry advice, Tim.
A few people.
Who?
Connor.
Oh yeah, because he knows who to go for poetry opinions. Yes. Yes, I rest my case. So, I mean, from here, she basically just makes the choice to leave everyone else. She takes her cat and she just goes. And ends up again getting into more trouble, encountering more people, witnesses more people getting grabbed and whatnot. The cat ends up running away at one point, but ends up like finding it. Almost like transitions to the other main character of Eric, because the cat goes up to like this little, it's like a staircase going down to like a basement area that's been flooded, and the cat starts drinking the water out of it, and then that's when Eric sort of like pops up. He's been like holding his breath underwater, trying to hide from the creatures, which I guess at this point he knows they can't go in water. Now, admittedly, they can like stick their leg into like a shallow body of water and pull something out. So it's not like they can't go in here, but at the very least, maybe he thinks, oh, this will disguise any noise that I might make. So he actually follows the cat back to her. This cat is so good at like finding people and like doing stuff. It feels like I mean, I like it because I like cats, and I love the cat being like, "Oh, I'll help come and get our medication. Yeah, I'll help with that because I'm a cat."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seemed a little unbelievable, but I mean, again, it's a cute animal character, so I'm not mad at it. I enjoyed it. I mean, if it was my cats, I probably would have been dead in like 10 seconds. Like if they start meowing if they don't get food every minute, I guess.
Yeah, because they do a whole thing when they're still in the theater where the cat goes up to the front door and starts pawing at the door because it like hears something. And like, yeah, my cats all do this. They paw at doors. And obviously, eventually, like the alien, like the cat actually stops pawing at it, but then hits like a little bell that's sitting on like a cushion as it walks back to her. So she dives to protect the cat, but it does like rip open the whole front of the building, and I think some people get killed, and it's a whole thing. And all I could think was, yeah, my cats would be making noise at me for food or something. Like they'd be. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're pretty quiet generally, but when they want to be loud, they will be little shits about it. And
absolutely, yeah.
This cat is like just so well behaved by and large, like because they never go back to it. They never like do the tension again where the cat might cause a sound. It's like the cat knows from that point on no sounds anymore.
Yeah,
because it's a good cat.
It can read the room. It's like everyone's being quiet. All right, I can hang with that.
I can go with that too. Yeah, why not? So yes, basically Eric follows Samira kind of around wherever she's going, because they do a whole thing actually before she gets separated with the cat. It's when all of the people are moving to the south of Manhattan because that's where the evacuation boats are going to be. And there's admittedly a pretty good shot here from like a bird's eye view of her walking in the opposite direction of everyone else. So it's very visually telling you she is not going to the evacuation boat. She's going somewhere else. Literally everyone else is trying to survive and she's given up, right? She wants to do something else. And ultimately, we find out later when she takes Eric back to what used to be her apartment and she's looking for any spare medication she had there. Turns out she doesn't, but they spend the night there during the thunderstorm, and we find out a few things. We find out about her relationship with her dad. We find out kind of that she was told that she only had like 1 or 2 years, because he reads like one of the last poems she ever wrote, and it was like, oh, it was meant to be 1 or 2 years and now it's 2. It was meant to be 3 to 6 months and now it's 6. So we get kind of told that, oh no, she was expected to have been dead by now. She's kind of like already on quote unquote borrowed time. And she doesn't really like have a will to necessarily survive per se, so much as she just wants to like experience this one thing again before she goes. Which there's a lot of potential for that. I think in terms of like how she can like sacrifice herself potentially later to like save other people perhaps, and they kind of do something with it. But they also kind of chickened out of the dramatic moment I thought they were going to do, which was kind of weird. But that's where we learn a lot about her. Because they whisper a little bit here because it's a loud rainstorm and there's thunder. In fact, they do a little interesting bit where she doesn't have a key for the door, so she says kick it down, but she makes him time it with the thunder. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, that's a fun little way of using what's going on around you to make it work. Because when she said kick it down, I thought, wait, that's going to be really loud. That's a stupid idea. But then she's like, wait a second, and then you see the flash and you go, oh, I get it. The thunder's going to cover it. Okay, very good. Very good. Any thoughts or feelings on like their initial bonding, him wanting or her wanting rid of him, but he just kind of keeps following like a puppy dog because he doesn't know where to go. He's got no one in the city he can go to because he's English. We've not really mentioned that, but he came here for law school or something, and he's just kind of a lost puppy.
I thought they had a good dynamic, and I mean it was kind of weird because like I was with her like, why is this guy following you? Like like just take a chill pill, dude. But I don't know, like I thought he brought like an interesting dynamic, like him just being very, like she seems like for the most part like pretty like cool and collected, and he just seemed like a bag of nerves that just like doesn't know like what to do. But then they end up like playing off each other, pretty nice, and I think he's a good actor as well. I don't know if he's done much other than Stranger Things, but I'm sure he's probably like 30 years older or something, but I was just thinking like, oh wow, like he looks like older like than he did when he was playing like a high schooler or whatever. But
I'm sure they were going for that when they put him in like hair and makeup for the high school role time.
It's just the magic of Hollywood. But no, I mean, I enjoy their character and their dynamic. I mean, I guess like it's not the point of the movie, because you're more interested in the character stuff. But it does feel like they always kind of like learn stuff like pretty quickly on, like there isn't even really doesn't seem like there's much of a distance between like the aliens attacking and then them being like, oh, we got to be quiet. And then same thing, like, I remember in the first one that I felt like that was like a kind of a big reveal when they're like, oh, like, we can use the sound of running water to kind of, mask our noise, and we can actually communicate and talk like, behind this waterfall and stuff. And like here, it seems like characters were like already picking up on that. Like, they had the little kids like sitting under the fountain and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, like, being like, oh yeah, we can use like the rainstorm and stuff. And
well, it's this like kind of position they find themselves in, right, as filmmakers, where on the one hand, this is supposed to be at the start of all this, so the characters should be discovering these ideas, but the audience have already went through a process of like discovering them in a different pacing in the first movie, so it'll be frustrating for us if we have to wait for them to figure all this shit out. We're going to be annoyed if they're not realizing it. What's funny though is that in the first movie, at least a lot of that stuff, like the characters knew it the entire time. We, the audience, just didn't know that they could do that yet until they specifically went out of their way to go and do it because they needed to have a conversation. But like here, it's more like no, this is kind of how they learn it, because like you said, she finds these two kids under a fountain, and the running water kind of disguises their voices enough for at least a little bit of a whisper, if not like a proper dialogue. That was the other thing that they were doing during the thunderstorm, is that after they have the heart-to-heart about like what she's went through and whatnot, she screams during the thunder, and then he does the same. And I'm like, okay, I like this kind of, again, I like it like on paper, but in the moment I'm like, this is like an indie drama like moment that isn't quite fitting in again with the horror movie that I kind of want. But
oh sure,
that's what it is.
Also seems like maybe a bit of an unnecessary risk. Like, who knows if there's like an alien close by that, like, I'm sure if they're close enough, they can probably hear you as well as the thunder and stuff.
Yeah, it's just kind of taken as a hard rule that it'll always work in this. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the next couple of sections, there's a whole like section in the middle here where they get under fire again from aliens, have to run around a little bit. They have to run through like a building.
Like starts like with an office building where they're in like one of those turnstiles, and then there's like a briefcase that's wedged. And I thought this scene was pretty decent. Like,
yeah, this was in the trailer. I remember seeing this in the trailer. This bit where they go through the revolving door, and there's the case is sort of blocking it, so he has to kind of force it, meaning that there's going to be a noise when it finally snaps.
Yeah, and at first I was kind of thinking like, oh, would that really be that noisy? But then the sound does a nice little bit where it's like, because it's such a empty, quiet space that like when it does fall in, it has this like nice echo, and then they're kind of running around through there, and I thought that was decent. And then does that lead to the part where they go underground? Yeah,
the subway, and it's like flooded. Yeah. So she's like got the cat on it's like a little bag that the cat's kind of floating on, and she's kind of moving it. It's kind of like in The Last of Us when you're Joel and you're pushing Ellie on the little plate of the pallet, and you're pushing it.
I never played it. So.
What?
I tried. It's just it kind of sucks.
It does not kind of suck.
There's all this like sneaking around bullshit. I can't do that in video games. I'm sorry.
You don't have to sneak around. All right, fine. Anyway,
I'll try it at some point.
Point is there's this big sequence where the aliens like chasing them down this like increasingly flooded tunnel, and there's straight up a point where she has to grab the cat and just sort of hold it in the bag underwater, and I'm like, that cat is having a traumatic experience right now. Yeah. And he's so chill about it when they finally come back out of water. You'd think he'd be shaking it about and, you know, just clawing and like trying to run away. The cat is just so chill about it. It's kind of wild. But yeah, that's kind of like the big set piece in the middle, and then they end up sort of hunkering down at a church which has other survivors.
Oh right, yeah.
And at this point she's in a lot of pain because she's not had like a new patch in a while. So kind of the sweet kind of turn of the movie is him deciding to go and get this. Like he's clearly noted down what she needs, and he goes to a pharmacy on his own to try and get it. And the cat followed him here because the cat gives him a jump scare, and then like they're on their way back, and the cat goes up to it's like a construction site. There's like big metal beams for a building that's not been finished, and the cat's like watching and licking what looks like, I thought it was like eggs for the monsters at first, but then it seemed like the monsters, when they showed up, opened them and like started to like breathe in the fumes. I don't know. It was like maybe they're terraforming Earth with their own atmosphere or something. I don't know what they're doing with that. It was
I honestly wasn't sure what that was.
Yeah, I guess this was their attempt at expanding the monster lore, but I don't know if it was that effect. I mean, most of this revolved around him trying to quietly climb up a beam so he could get the cat, which I thought they cheated here because he climbs up the thing. The monster, there's a really nice shot actually where the monster kind of pops up right behind him, and it's like a good little scare moment. But then it goes away, and then he shuffles along, he grabs the cat, he hugs the cat, and it just cuts back to the church, and he's there with the patch. And I thought, wait a minute, how did he climb back down the metal beam holding the cat without making a noise? Like, that's the part that seems more tough than what he's already done. I don't know.
Very good point. Yeah.
I'm calling some shenanigans of what they chose to cut out there.
Yeah, I mean, not to, give this movie any like credit or anything, but like, I don't know, I feel like we've seen like the cat like resting on their shoulders and stuff before. If maybe it's like clinging onto that as he's climbing down, but I mean, again, I don't know, like no reason to just assume that, I guess.
I don't know. It felt like, okay, because I was thinking, oh, how's he going to get down quietly now? And then I just cut to the next scene and he's done it magically. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're just going to gloss over that. Fair enough. But that's the problem when you have a thing that's based on such a specific mechanic, right? Which is the sound thing, because I can sort of already see coming all the problems. So if the movie doesn't address them, then it feels like it's missing out important details of like, how did they get around that, or how did they do this without making noise? Or whatever it is, because the one that was earlier on is when all the people were quietly walking to the the docks, right? And it was like this army of people walking like slowly. It was still pretty loud. It's still like 500 people walking. Like, it's not quiet.
And there's like so much like destruction and carnage, and it's like a big city, so there's just like glass and stuff everywhere that you're gonna be making crunching sounds and.
Yeah, so it's almost like the premise of A Quiet Place was designed for like, okay, it's been a while, we've got this small group of people who all know how to like move around quietly, and they're in a rural area and all the rest of it, and then they've went back and tried to do it in a city, but it feels like they're having to kind of play a little loose with the mechanics a little bit, just so that the monsters aren't attacking like constantly when they should be.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you just have to suspend your disbelief for a little bit. But again, it feels like that was such a selling point with the first movie was, the premise, the gimmick, and then trying to think logically like how so much stuff would work. And now it's like kind of like, nah, we don't really want you to think too much about it at this point.
I think I would be willing to let it go and just suspend my disbelief if I was more into like the movie. But I'm not. I'm at this like arm's length from it, so I'm just noticing things and like nitpicking them a little bit, and I admit that, like I totally am. But I'm very lukewarm. Okay, I'm very lukewarm in the whole affair.
That's fine.
But yeah, so the sort of the end of the movie, right, is she wanted to go to this specific pizza place in Harlem. He takes her there. Unsurprisingly, it's been wrecked by everything that's been going on, and she's upset. And he's like, "Okay, where was the jazz bar or jazz club that your dad played at?" And they go there instead. They have some booze, and he sneaks off and looks for another pizza place. He finds one, and he brings back a pizza, but he writes on top of it like the name of the other pizza place that she wanted to go to. But clearly he went in there and found a pizza that was mostly full, right? There was like one slice missing, clearly got left behind when everything kicked off. And it's only been like 2 days, so it'll probably be fine to eat.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta assume, it's New York. There's probably like rats everywhere. They're jumping at an opportunity to,
Oh, sure.
gobble down some food. But again, whatever, fine.
Maybe it was up on a shelf or something, I don't know.
Sure.
But she bites into the slice of pizza. He does too, and even though it's this cold 2-day-old pizza, she still. Because I was actually thinking throughout the movie, is she going to like fire up the oven and make one? Like what?
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to be open, obviously.
Yeah. No, I mean, good point. I was thinking the same thing. Or like she expects like there to still be one person working there. They'll just quietly take her order or whatever.
Yeah, like 1998 Godzilla when the city's been evacuated, but Matthew Broderick goes to buy a pregnancy test, and there's someone working at the chemist. That's weird.
Who could have forgotten that classic scene?
I didn't.
The other thing that was kind of making me laugh too is like, yeah, they're pouring themselves some drinks and stuff, and obviously they're not getting like shit faced or whatever. But I kept thinking like, I don't know, do you really want to
be drunk during
be getting drunk and like stumbling around and like dropping stuff like whoops.
Yeah, because this is the scene definitely I was talking about at the start when I kept talking about all the romantic warm lighting coming through the windows, and like because this whole sweet thing where he like does a little magic act with some playing cards for her and like impresses her, and they both take a bow as if there was an audience, and it's all again very sweet end of indie drama style like character stuff, and it works well enough. But from here it's like, okay, at one point I think they're outside and they're looking over at the water and they see that the last ferry's getting ready to leave, and it's like, hey, you should really go, you should be going to that because you still got a life to live. So like she gives him her cardigan for reasons. I mean, there's a note in it that he finds later, but she gives him the cardigan and she walks him to that part of the city, and she intentionally starts making noise with like a crowbar or whatever it is and some cars. And I'm like, okay, she is making noise because she knows she's already going to die and she's had like her final hurrah and she's wanted to live again, blah blah blah, but she's saving him. And like on the boat, we see the family from earlier are on this boat, and they're yelling, "Stop the boat! Like there's someone coming." Because I was actually thinking at one point, see when they looked over earlier and they saw the boat leaving before they go down there, it was like blasting its foghorn or whatever it is, and I was thinking, wait, why are you doing that? But to be fair, I thought about it and said, you know what? This is actually smart because they're blasting noise in a place where the creatures can't get to them, and therefore hopefully distracting the monsters from anyone who's still like sneaking around or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I can see some reason for it. Or maybe it's just a petty like F you to the monsters, like ha 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 ha, we got away, you bastards, you can't get to us now.
Yeah, I probably would be careful though if I was the boat, because it does seem like they have a pretty good jump.
Yeah, I was thinking that because they started it maybe a little too soon, where I'm like, oh, they can jump that distance right now. I don't know if I'd be doing that.
And like that, that's another thing too. I was wondering, like, okay, like how are the people getting on these boats? Like, does everyone have to swim out to them? Because at first I was like, oh, do they get like maybe a little like raft or lifeboat or something where they pick people up, and but then I'm like, oh, but that's gonna be making noise and stuff. Like anything you do is gonna make some type of noise.
A rowboat, I guess, maybe would make too much noise.
Yeah, unless like maybe it's just similar enough to the normal waves that maybe they don't notice it.
I mean, maybe the ferry was just next to the dock, and they were just very quiet when they were bringing the little bridge up to get going. It does feel like though it would be making a lot of noise as it starts up when it's still right next to the dock. So I feel like I don't know if there's a way to maybe like just I don't know, push it a little bit so that it's a little bit out of the water. It probably would have been wise not to keep it next to the dock for that reason, I suppose. So yeah, maybe they were just using lifeboats or ferries or little rowboats to get people to and from. I don't know. But the plan's working well enough. He's running with the cat. But there's a point here where he does make a noise by accident, and they all start running for him. He's getting chased down the docks with all these monsters. She's looking terrified that he's about to get killed. And I really, really thought that she was going to make the choice to just like because she was already putting herself in danger by making the noise she was with the cars, but she was kind of doing it relatively safe by like keeping her distance from the noise she just made. I really thought she was going to scream here to lure them all back towards her and sacrifice herself to save him. Instead, he just kind of like jumps out of the water just at the last possible second so they can't get to him. And again, this poor cat is underwater. And I'm like, cats hate that. This cat is not happy right now. I'm just going to say that. But he gets his happy ending. He gets to the boat. Everyone's like hugging him and like everyone's happy. The kid's there. He's hugging the cat. And he finds a note from her in the pocket saying, "Oh, take care of my cat. Thanks for making me feel alive again." Blah blah blah. All the sappy stuff you're expecting.
Maybe a dumb question, but like, he's so submerged underwater. Like, wouldn't that note just be ruined? Like, wouldn't it just be like a wet sopping mess?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's dried off a bit by the time he pulls it out. But I don't know. Maybe it was on like glossy paper or something that was would withstand the wet a little bit more. I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, I know it's like in the pocket and everything, but it's not like you're just lightly skimming the water. Like you're fully like in it swimming. Like water's getting everywhere.
I hate this conversation though, Tim, because this sounds like such like cinema sins bullshit we're complaining about right now, and I hate it.
No, it's fair, but I mean, I'd be lying if. I wasn't thinking about that the whole time he was reading the note. I was like, well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I was thinking constantly about, are they breaking the rules here by how much noise they're making, or shouldn't this be making noise, yada yada. Like, I was thinking that a lot throughout this movie, and I think it's a sign that I wasn't that invested, because if I was invested, I wouldn't be thinking that way. I'd be too busy caring about the characters and what was going to happen. So the actual final scene of the movie is that she had been charging her iPod on like the little boombox thing that was inside the club, and she's listening on her earphones walking down the street, and the movie ends with her taking the headphone jack out and letting the music play, and Monster lands behind her, cut to black. Like, so she chooses to die on her own terms, even though I feel like you don't know if they're going to kill you quick. This could be horrible, whatever they're about to do to you.
Yeah.
Maybe go to the pharmacy and like down a bunch of pills or something to go peacefully.
Sure. No, a lot of things you can do.
yeah. I'm sure you could find a gun somewhere. It's New York. There's probably one lying around.
Or a grenade or something, so you can take some of them out with you, or I don't know.
Okay, but where's she going to find a grenade, Tim?
I'm sure there's some army surplus store somewhere.
They don't just sell grenades to the public. At least I hope they don't.
I mean, I don't know. When you play like Resident Evil or something, when you're walking around, there's just ammunition and stuff lying around all over the place. It's
a video game. You can't paste real world logic on a video game.
Well, I can.
No, you cannot. Don't be silly. This is nonsensical.
Be quiet or I'll jump on your head.
That's a weird threat, but all right.
It's like Mario. It's another video game joke.
Actually, technically, that's what the monsters in this do. If you're not quiet, they jump in your head.
That's fair. Yeah.
So maybe bite your head off is maybe more accurate, but yeah, this is such a weird one to talk about because I think it is perfectly well made. I get what it's doing with giving us a character who actually doesn't really want to live anymore, who has already made such peace and like is almost like frustrated that she's ready to die. She's made that decision and death hasn't come when it was expected, and now she's still lingering afterwards. Like, I think that's a great idea for a main character in a movie like this. I think the scenes with Eric are sweet enough and handled well enough. They have some chemistry, and it's all very nice. It just does not. It's not what I want from a horror monster movie, really. At least not one like this.
Sure.
So I found myself at arm's length with it the entire time, and like objectively every so often going, "Oh, this is a good, well done scene," but not feeling anything from it. Like, that was constantly how I felt in this movie. Is I felt nothing. I objectively can recognize that this is perfectly fine what I'm seeing, but I just don't care that much. And I had that through almost even the cat couldn't snap me out of it. And I don't know. I don't know what to say at this point. Other than just I find this franchise very. I don't know. I almost want to say bland, but that doesn't even feel right.
Well, I mean, I think in some instances, like, again, if we're looking at it as the horror kind of aspect of it, like, you know, I would say the design of the aliens and just, you know, the way they operate,
that's bland. That's
very
fair,
bland, you know. I mean, I think I enjoyed it more than you, but I'm not like too far off. Like, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I appreciated it for, you know, because I thought it was well done, and I thought the performances were good, and like,
there's like heart to heart moments where like she's crying her eyes out as she's like talking about her dead dad, and she's looking at the photograph of her dad and her as a little girl at the end in the old pizza place, and it's like, oh, this is like a sweet moment, like this is a good performance. But I'm just like,
But I mean, we're a horror movie podcast, so it's like it's weird to, you know, be complimenting all that stuff, but then being like, but yeah, the monster attacking horror kind of stuff just really isn't doing anything in the movie. It's just not hitting.
Yeah, but I think this is hurt more by it, because there's definitely other movies. I mean, this is going way back, but do you remember the movie Spring that we did like 7 years ago? Right?
Oh yeah.
And that was like basically a love story that had like a little bit of a horror element thrown in, and the horror element was the weakest part, and we said that in the review. But I think both of us still felt quite positive, as it was good at everything else it was doing. It was still more interesting than I feel like this movie is for whatever reason. And I like.
Well, I mean, I think a big difference between those two is that wasn't the third in the Spring franchise.
True.
You know?
It was its own thing. Yeah. Yeah. But that's true. If this had been the first Quiet Place movie, like, would the horror stuff work better for me? Maybe. But I mean, having said that, we've said repeatedly at this point that how we feel about Quiet Place 1 now, with some like hindsight and time removed. But maybe I would have liked it more on the initial viewing, this one, if it had been the first one.
Yeah, I mean, they would have definitely had to change stuff up. Like, you know, if it was the first one, like, there probably would have been more, you know, discovery, like we were kind of talking about before. But I mean, maybe it would have hit more because, yeah, I would say I probably enjoyed this director more than I enjoyed John Krasinski. But yeah, I don't know.
What a mean thing to say about Jim from The Office.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about bland? Maybe I'm just annoyed because you know, this was on Paramount Plus, and like I think there's a good like month, maybe even like longer than that, when, you know, now when you watch a streaming service, even if you have like it's commercial free, like they still show a commercial like at the start of it, and then for the longest time they were always just showing some like behind the scenes stuff from If, the imaginary friend movie that John Krasinski did, and I just got so annoyed seeing him talk about that dumb movie every time I wanted to watch something.
So you now resent John Krasinski, is what you're saying?
I mean, I wouldn't say I loved him before, but
that's fair. Yeah, okay. Well, he's Emily Blunt's problem now, so you don't have to worry, Tim.
Yeah, sorry, Emily.
Yeah. This is such a weird one to talk about, to be honest, because I said this. What did I say this? I said it on a TV review recently, but it's really tough to come in here when something is perfectly objectively fine, but I just don't feel anything for it. I think it was the last Agatha review I did. I was talking about this, where I would much rather have a review or a conversation about something I hated, because at least then I'd have passion. I'd be angry about what I didn't like. I'd be saying, "Oh, this pissed me off, and this is horrendous," and I'd get to vent. And obviously, the best case scenario is that I just love the thing and I'm passionate in that sense, or if it's interesting in how it's bad or good or whatever. But something about this just, it feels like A Quiet Place is like, obviously the thing to compare to Marvel is really the Conjuring verse because of the whole shared universe thing. But in terms of like the way I feel about the quality, I feel like A Quiet Place is very much the MCU of horror movies.
Okay.
That's how I feel about it right now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that makes sense to anyone other than me, but go for it.
Yeah, I can get a feeling that like with like current MCU status.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about the last like 5 years, not so much like everything. I hate to be such a downer, especially when other people seem to quite like it. But I feel nothing for this. I felt very little for the last one, I don't think, and I'm sure I was probably more like nicer on the review because objectively I didn't think there was anything that wrong with it. But now we're three in.
The second one?
Yeah, the second one. But now that we're three in, I just don't know if I've got the like. I can't pretend that I feel anything else other than what I do feel.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because I don't remember pretty much anything from the second one, but I just remember really not liking it and thinking it was very boring and dull. I
thought it was really strange how they basically just had a new husband character. He wasn't the husband, but he was just there to replace the husband because the husband wasn't around anymore. So Oppenheimer was there.
And that one did have some boat stuff too, right? Like,
yeah, they went to an island and stuff, and then there was a whole thing where the little like harmonious like perfect island that had no monsters, like a monster came on a boat and caused some trouble.
That does sound vaguely familiar.
But the little girl, the deaf girl, knew how to kill it because she thought of that in the first one. So,
of course,
yeah.
Oh brother,
feedback, baby. Okay, Tim, what was your favorite scene of the movie?
I forget. Favorite scene. It's kind of tough because I feel like they do blend together quite a bit. Yeah, it's kind of hard because, like, you know, I feel like if it's more of like a drama thing or something, you might pick something that's like a meaningful, you know, conversation or something between them or whatnot. And you know, they did have the little moments where they could talk like a little bit, but you know, it is mostly, you know, them being quiet and stuff. But maybe I'll go with the you know, the scene where they're in the turnstile and the thing is wedged in there, because yeah, you know, I did think that did, yeah, as much as I, you know, was saying like, you know, I didn't care too much about a lot of the action and monster stuff. I did think that one was a pretty exciting scene.
You sounded so riveted as you were describing that there, Tim. Yeah, if I have to pick, I guess I'll think that one. Yeah, maybe that one. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll go with like the thunderstorm generally, and like how they used that to disguise like certain things, and like it gave them a chance to whisper because there was this constant rain outside. Like it was just, you know, I don't know if we ever had quite a thunderstorm in the other one, so it was a new way to use the premise. So and they used that to allow for some, you know, some of the emotional heart-to-heart stuff, which is actually the more important part of the movie in terms of what it's doing. So, MVP, Tim.
I mean, you know, it's a two-hander movie, and I thought both performers did a very good job, but I do probably have to give it up for the cat. I mean,
yeah, I'm picking the cat. Like I was getting ready to jump in and be like, "It's the cat, Tim. What are you talking about?" But you're making the right choice. So continue.
Especially like you said, it like being submerged under the water and not like, you know, coming up and like, not even like popping up out of the water and like coughing and be like or something. Like that's a lot of restraint for a cat. So.
Yeah, I was worried because I'm like, the cats even know to hold their breath. They're not dogs.
Right, yeah.
They don't really go swimming.
I mean, even like with a dog, it's like, yeah, it'll swim, but it doesn't, or I don't think it'll usually like will dive under the water for long periods of time, yeah.
Yeah. But no, there's a good pretty cat made it, so cat wins. All right, Tim, what are you rating Quiet Place Day 1?
It is a little tough because, again, like
objectively it's not bad, but you don't feel that positive about it.
Yeah, and I don't even want to say that like I didn't enjoy watching the movie. Like I liked it, but again, it's just from the horror angle, it there's a lot to be desired, but it is very well directed. I thought it looked good. Like, the director really did a lot, like with the landscapes. I thought it was a very pretty movie, and then the performers were just doing really good jobs. And I did feel like, the story of this woman's life and everything was compelling, but I mean, again, echoing what you said, it's probably not what you want from a big alien attack kind of.
Yeah, let's all get sad and think about the meaning of life and death in our roller coaster monster movie.
Yeah. So yeah, it's strange. I'm kind of waffling between maybe a 7 and a 6.5, but which again is still like pretty high, like all things considered, but maybe I'll go down a smidge and just do the 6.5. Technical levels, yeah, all very good, but on a horror level, not the most interesting thing.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go straight 6, I think, which is basically as high as I feel like it can go, because I think objectively it's technically well done. There's lots of nice moments. Some obvious modern day green screen stuff, but they're not really on a street, which kind of annoyed me, but that's whatever. For me, I just I can't go any higher than a 6 because I think it's objectively fine, but I just felt nothing. I felt nothing, and I can't go any higher than that. So there you go. Probably not making the top 10 of the year when we get around to that. No. I'll just say it.
I mean, still pretty decent scores for something that you don't really feel that passionate about.
That's the weird thing about it, though, is that it probably still gets a 6 because technically I don't think it's terrible. It's certainly not. It's just, and it wasn't a hard watch by any means. It just I don't know, we've waffled on long enough. I don't know how many more ways I can say the same thing other than just I do not feel it. The sappy and melodrama tone to these movies, because in the last one it was all about the family and remember our father who died in the first one, and we have to get through this somehow, mama. Yeah, and for some reason Emily Blunt was stuck with the injured son in a closed room for most of the movie, whilst it was the daughter and Kelly and Murphy who were the ones we were actually focusing on. Anyway, there you go. That's just the review, everyone. Next week, I believe, is our off week of the month, meaning that there'll be no regular episode out for everyone. That'll be back the week after. I'll just spoil it. We're doing Thanksgiving for Thanksgiving, since we didn't get it done last year, since it would have been sometime after Thanksgiving, so we felt it was better just to wait and do it at the appropriate occasion. But if you're a Patreon member, you can get an exclusive episode next week when the regular YouTube gets the week off, or the podcast feed gets the week off. We're going to be doing The Watchers, which is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter's movie that she directed. So we'll see how that goes. But that'll be on Patreon next week. So you can check out that. Plus, if you want to support the show and help keep everything coming, streams, Ace, Collector's Cut, all the stuff over on the TV channel, you can do that over at Patreon, and at the $5 and up tier, you also get access to even more streams, which is where me and Tim will do random top 5s and little horror discussions. Sometime this month, I don't know if we've already done it by the time this goes out or if it's still to come. We're seeing where we can fit it into the schedule, but there's going to be a sort of Octoberthon kind of wrap up, even more streams episode where we talk about all the different horror movies that we were watching throughout October. They weren't for the show, just stuff we caught on our own. So that's something coming up, if that sounds interesting. But that is the show, everyone. That has been Streams After Midnight. Thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Keep watching scary movies. Goodbye.